Something bigger than the Kraken is living in the Mariana Trench. 9 miles down, the water crushes with a force that would flatten a steel drum in seconds. No sunlight has ever reached that far. The cold sits just above freezing and never changes. Fewer people have ever touched that floor than have walked on the moon. In the 1750s, a bishop in Norway wrote down a story that sailors had been telling for generations, and parts of that story are only now starting to make sense. In 1752, a Norwegian bishop named Erik Pontoppidan published an account describing a creature so massive that when it surfaced, sailors mistook its back for a floating island. He wrote that its arms could wrap around a full ship and drag the whole crew beneath the waves. Fishermen claimed that wherever the creature had recently been, the water stayed unusually calm and full of fish for days afterward, as if the giant had stirred up food from somewhere deep below. For a long time, most scientists brushed these stories aside. As fear and exhaustion, the kind of thing exhausted men imagine after months alone at sea, nobody had any proof that something that large could actually exist down there. Then, piece by piece, over the following 2 centuries, real animals started turning up that were strange enough to make people wonder if some of these old stories carried a grain of truth after all. The first real clue came from a fish nobody expected to still be alive. In January 2004, staff at the Owashima Marine Park in Japan filmed a living frilled shark swimming in shallow water near the surface, an animal usually found far below where sunlight can reach. The frilled shark looks almost nothing like the sharks most people picture. Its body is long and snake-like, its mouth is lined with hundreds of small backward-curving teeth arranged in rows, and its gills form 6 frilled slits along its throat that give the species its name. Scientists consider it something close to a living fossil, a shape that has barely changed in tens of millions of years while almost everything else in the ocean evolved around it. Frilled sharks normally live between about 120 and 1,300 meters down, hunting squid and other fish in near total darkness. They are rarely seen alive because bringing one to the surface almost always kills it. Its body simply is not built to handle the pressure. Change. The animal filmed in 2004 died within hours of being moved into a shallow tank, a reminder of just how tightly bound these creatures are to the crushing world they come from. As strange as the frilled shark is, it still lives thousands of meters above the true floor of the deepest trenches. Whatever holds the real records, down there would need to survive conditions this ancient predator was never built for. The next piece of the puzzle came from an animal that scientists did not even know existed until shockingly recently. In November 1976, a United States Navy research ship recovered an enormous, unfamiliar shark tangled in its anchor cables off the coast of Hawaii. The animal was nearly 4.5 meters long, with a huge rounded head and a wide mouth that seemed built for something other than biting. Researchers soon realized they were looking at a species completely new to science, and they named it the megamouth shark. Unlike most large sharks, the megamouth is a filter feeder, swimming slowly through deep water with its enormous mouth open, straining out tiny shrimp-like creatures and plankton instead of hunting fish. It spends its days far below the surface, often past 200 meters down, then rises closer to the surface at night to follow its food upward, a daily migration scientists call a vertical commute. Since that first discovery, fewer than 100 confirmed sightings of megamouth sharks have ever been recorded worldwide, making it one of the rarest large animals on the planet. Think about that for a moment. An animal the size of a small bus went completely unnoticed by science until the late 20th century, hiding in plain sight simply because almost nobody had ever looked in. The right place at the right depth. If an animal that large could stay hidden for so long, it raises an obvious question about what else might still be waiting undiscovered in the deepest, least explored parts of the ocean. And the answer to part of that question showed up not from a shark or a squid, but from cracks in the seafloor itself. In February 1977, scientists diving in the submersible Alvin near the Galapagos Rift made a discovery that rewrote what biologists thought they knew about life on Earth. Deep beneath the surface, along cracks where scalding mineral-rich water pours out of the seafloor, they found entire ecosystems thriving in complete darkness, powered not by sunlight, but by chemicals dissolved in the water. Among the strangest animals living around these hydrothermal vents were giant tube worms, some growing longer than 2 meters, with no mouth, no stomach, and no way to eat food the way most animals do. Instead, they host colonies of bacteria inside their bodies that convert chemicals from the vent water into energy, feeding the worm from the inside out. Before this discovery, almost every scientist believed that all life on Earth ultimately depended on sunlight in one way or another. Finding thriving colonies of large, strange animals living entirely without it forced researchers to rethink the basic rules of biology. It also opened up a much bigger and stranger question. If entire ecosystems could exist in total darkness, fueled by nothing but heat and chemicals from inside the planet, what other kinds of life might be surviving in the coldest, deepest, most crushing parts of the ocean, far from any vent at all? Around the same time, researchers were mapping these strange vent ecosystems. Other teams were finally getting real proof behind the oldest sea monster story of all. For centuries, the only evidence anyone had of giant squid came from dead bodies washed up on beaches or torn tentacle pieces pulled from the stomachs of sperm whales. It took until 2004 for scientists to photograph a live giant squid in the wild, and until 2012 for anyone to capture actual video of one swimming freely in its natural habitat. Females can stretch past 12 meters long when you count. They're too long feeding tentacles, and for a long time, this animal held the title of the closest real thing to the Kraken. Then, in April 2025, a team using a submersible called Sebastian, operated by the Schmidt Ocean Institute, filmed something even rarer near the South Sandwich Islands. A living colossal squid, heavier and more powerful than its more famous cousin, caught on camera for the first time in history. If you have made it this far into the story, you are exactly the kind of person this channel is made for. And if you want more of these deep ocean mysteries showing up the moment they are ready, this is a good moment to hit subscribe before we go even deeper. As incredible as both of these squid are, neither one is actually a resident of the deepest trenches. Giant squid usually stay between 300 and 1,000 meters down, and even the colossal squid rarely passes 2,000 meters. That still leaves more than 7,000 meters of crushing darkness completely unaccounted for, all the way down to the true floor of the Mariana Trench. For a long time, nobody knew what, if anything, could survive at that final stretch of depth. Then, in 2023, a research team studying the Atacama Trench off the coast of Chile and Peru made a discovery that finally gave scientists a real answer. Lowering baited traps into water more than 7,500 meters deep, they pulled up a creature unlike anything on record, a large, muscular amphipod built not to scavenge scraps like its smaller relatives, but to actively hunt other animals in the crushing dark. Scientists named it Dulcibella camanchaca, and early research suggests it may be one of the only confirmed apex predators living at true Hadal depths, the zone found only in the deepest ocean trenches on the planet, unlike the smaller amphipods found scattered across other trenches around the world. This species appears to have evolved specifically to hunt, using strong limbs and sharp mouthparts to catch prey in an environment where almost nothing else can move quickly or easily. Its discovery suggests that the deepest trenches are not simply empty graveyards where things drift down and get scavenged. They may host entire miniature food chains, with actual predators and prey operating in total isolation from the rest of the ocean above them. Scientists are still working to understand exactly how widespread this species is, and whether similar predators are hiding undiscovered in other trenches around the world that have barely been explored at all. Even that discovery is not quite the deepest confirmed story the ocean has to offer. In 2014, cameras lowered into the Mariana Trench near a region called the Serena Deep recorded a pale, almost translucent fish swimming at a depth deeper than any living fish had ever been filmed before. Researchers studied the footage and later collected specimens. And in 2017, they formally described the animal in the scientific journal Zootaxa as a brand new species, naming it the Mariana snailfish. It has no scales and a soft, almost jelly-like body built to handle pressure instead of resisting it with a hard shell. Scientists have identified a natural chemical inside the cells of deep sea fish, like this one, that helps keep proteins stable under enormous pressure. And the deeper a fish lives, the more of this chemical its body tends to carry, almost as if there is a built-in limit to how deep any fish with a backbone can ever survive. It is a small, unremarkable-looking animal, nothing close to squid or shark-sized, yet it currently holds the record for the deepest confirmed living fish ever filmed on the planet. Put all of these animals together, and a pattern starts to emerge that connects every single one of them back to the same central truth about the deepest place on Earth. No frilled shark, no megamouth shark, no giant squid, and no colossal squid has ever been confirmed at the true bottom of the Mariana Trench. Every one of those animals, as strange and massive as they are, lives thousands of meters above that final stretch of darkness. What has actually been confirmed down there in the true Hadal zone are creatures built small, soft, and strange rather than big and dramatic, shaped by unimaginable pressure into forms that look nothing like the Kraken of old stories, yet somehow feel just as impossible. That does not make the trench any less astonishing. Less than a quarter of the entire ocean floor has ever been mapped in real detail, and scientists are still describing new species from Hadal depths on a regular basis, including a hunting amphipod nobody even knew existed just a few years ago. The real story of the Mariana Trench was never a single monster waiting in the dark to drag a ship under. It is an entire hidden world of animals still, being discovered piece by piece, proving again and again that the truth, once fully documented, ends up stranger and more interesting than the legend that came before it. And every new expedition into that darkness leaves researchers with just as many new questions as answers, which is exactly why subscribing now means you will not miss whatever they find next.